Purification methods. When it comes to emergency preparedness, few resources hold as much critical importance as clean drinking water. The human body can survive for weeks without food, but only days without water. Yet, in disaster scenarios, whether natural catastrophes, infrastructure failures, or societal disruptions, safe drinking water often becomes the first casualty. Municipal water systems fail. Wells become contaminated. Stored supplies run dangerously low. What was once a simple matter of turning a faucet transforms into a life-threatening challenge that demands immediate solutions. The threats lurking in contaminated water are numerous and severe. Bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella, viruses including hepatitis and norovirus, parasites such as Giardia and Cryptosporidium, all invisible to the naked eye, yet capable of causing debilitating illness or death when water supplies become compromised. Chemical contaminants present another layer of danger, with industrial pollutants, agricultural runoff, and even naturally occurring minerals potentially rendering water sources toxic. In the aftermath of floods, hurricanes, or earthquakes, these dangers multiply exponentially as sewage systems overflow and water treatment facilities go offline. For the prepared individual, this reality isn't cause for panic, but for pragmatic action. Knowledge of water purification techniques represents one of the most fundamental survival skills, a cornerstone of self-reliance that can mean the difference between health and sickness, life and death. The methods vary widely in their complexity, effectiveness, and resource requirements. Some demand nothing more than basic tools found in any kitchen. Others utilize specialized equipment designed specifically for emergency scenarios. Each approach has its strengths and limitations, its ideal applications and situations where alternative methods might prove more suitable. The psychological impact of water insecurity has to also be considered. The stress of uncertain access to safe drinking water compounds the already significant mental burden of emergency situations. This anxiety can impair decision-making precisely when clear thinking is most crucial. By mastering various purification techniques and understanding when to deploy each method, you establish not just physical security, but peace of mind, the confidence that comes from knowing you can provide this essential resource for yourself and your loved ones, regardless of external circumstances. What follows is a comprehensive exploration of water purification methods accessible to the average person without specialized training. From ancient techniques that have served humanity for millennia to modern innovations that leverage cutting-edge materials, science, these approaches form a versatile toolkit for addressing water contamination in virtually any scenario. By understanding the principles behind each method and practicing these skills before they're needed, you transform potential catastrophe into manageable challenge. The path to water security begins with knowledge that empowers you to face uncertainty with confidence and capability. The boiling method, nature's oldest purifier. Water boiling stands as humanity's oldest and most trusted method of purification, a technique that has sustained civilizations across millennia. The elegance of this approach lies in its remarkable simplicity, applying sufficient heat to raise water to its boiling point effectively neutralizes the vast majority of waterborne pathogens that threaten human health. This time-tested method requires no specialized equipment beyond what exists in even the most modest kitchen, making it the cornerstone of emergency water treatment protocols worldwide. When disaster strikes and more sophisticated purification systems fail, the humble pot of boiling water remains a reliable safeguard against waterborne illness. The science behind boiling's effectiveness is straightforward yet powerful. Most disease-causing microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, and parasites cannot survive prolonged exposure to temperatures at or above 212 F100C. The thermal energy disrupts the cellular structures of these pathogens, denaturing proteins and destroying cell membranes essential to their survival. Even hardy organisms like Giardia cysts and Cryptosporidium, which resist many chemical treatments, succumb to proper boiling. This universal effectiveness against biological contaminants makes boiling particularly valuable when the specific nature of water contamination remains unknown, as is often the case in emergency scenarios. Implementing the boiling method correctly requires attention to several critical factors. The duration of boiling represents perhaps the most significant consideration. While many pathogens die almost instantly at boiling temperatures, public health authorities typically recommend a rolling boil for at least 1 minute to ensure comprehensive disinfection. This duration provides a margin of safety that accounts for potential variables in water quality and heating conditions. In high-altitude environments where water boils at lower temperatures due to reduced atmospheric pressure, extending the boiling time becomes essential. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention suggests increasing boiling duration to 3 minutes at elevations above 6,500 feet, 2,000 meters, to compensate for the lower boiling point. The container used for boiling warrants careful consideration as well. Metal vessels, stainless steel, aluminum, or cast iron conduct heat efficiently and withstand direct flame exposure, making them ideal for emergency scenarios. Glass and ceramic containers can also serve effectively when handled with appropriate caution to prevent thermal shock and breakage. In truly desperate situations where conventional containers are unavailable, improvised vessels become necessary. Indigenous survival techniques demonstrate the possibility of boiling water in containers made from natural materials, hollowed logs, large leaves folded and secured, or even animal hides by adding heated rocks rather than placing the container directly over flame. These methods, while less efficient, illustrate the adaptability of boiling as a purification strategy even in the most primitive conditions. Fuel requirements represent both a strength and limitation of the boiling approach. The method's simplicity means it can utilize virtually any heat source, gas stoves, electric burners, campfires, or improvised heating arrangements using available combustibles. This flexibility proves invaluable during extended power outages or evacuation scenarios. However, the fuel consumption necessary for bringing water to a sustained boil can become problematic during prolonged emergencies when energy resources grow scarce. Efficiency measures, such as using lids to retain heat and minimize evaporation, become increasingly important as emergency situations extend in duration. Preppers with foresight often include multiple fuel options in their emergency supplies, specifically to ensure water purification capabilities remain uninterrupted. While extraordinarily effective against biological contaminants, boiling demonstrates important limitations regarding other forms of water pollution. The process does nothing to remove chemical contaminants, heavy metals, or many dissolved solids. Industrial pollutants, agricultural runoff containing pesticides, or water contaminated with fuel or other hazardous chemicals remain dangerous even after thorough boiling. In fact, boiling can potentially concentrate certain chemical contaminants as water evaporates during the process. This limitation underscores the importance of starting with the cleanest available water source and potentially combining boiling with filtration or other methods when chemical contamination is suspected. The cooling and storage of boiled water requires thoughtful handling to prevent recontamination. Once cooled, the water should be transferred to clean, sanitized containers with secure lids for storage. Glass jars, food-grade plastic bottles, or dedicated water storage containers all serve this purpose effectively when properly prepared. The practice of adding a small amount of uncontaminated water to the cooling container to seed it with beneficial minerals represents folk wisdom without scientific basis and should be avoided. The taste of boiled water often presents a noticeable difference from untreated water, a characteristic that can affect compliance with purification protocols, particularly among children or those unaccustomed to emergency conditions. This flat taste results primarily from the reduction of dissolved oxygen during the boiling process rather than from any change in water quality or safety. Simple aeration techniques, pouring the cooled water back and forth between clean containers several times, can reintroduce oxygen and improve palatability without compromising purification. Alternatively, adding a pinch of salt per gallon or a few drops of lemon juice can mask the flat taste without introducing significant contamination risks, though these additions should be used sparingly. Energy efficiency considerations become increasingly relevant during extended emergency situations when fuel supplies may be limited. Several approaches can maximize the utility of available heating resources. Covering the boiling container with a lid dramatically reduces the energy required to reach and maintain boiling temperature. Similarly, starting with room temperature rather than cold water reduces the total energy input needed. When purifying large volumes, boiling water in batches rather than individual servings typically proves more efficient. Some preppers employ insulated cooking boxes, essentially homemade thermal cookers that allow water to reach boiling temperature briefly over a heat source before being transferred to an insulated container where residual heat continues the cold. Purification process without additional fuel consumption. The historical significance of boiling as a purification method extends far beyond emergency preparedness contexts. Long before germ theory provided scientific understanding of waterborne disease, cultures worldwide discovered the protective benefits of boiled water through observation and experience. Ancient Chinese texts from as early as the 4th century BCE advised boiling drinking water as a health measure. During cholera outbreaks in 19th century London, physician John Snow's investigations implicated contaminated water sources, eventually leading to wider adoption of boiling as a preventative measure. This rich historical legacy testifies to boiling's enduring value as a public health intervention accessible even to societies without modern technological infrastructure. For modern preppers, boiling represents not just a practical skill, but a psychological anchor during chaotic situations. The simple act of heating water over flame connects us to countless generations who relied on this same technique for survival. When sophisticated systems fail and uncertainty prevails, this ancient method provides both practical water security and a reassuring link to human resilience across time. The knowledge that clean water remains accessible through such a fundamental process offers profound peace of mind amid the stress and disruption of emergency scenarios. This psychological benefit, though less tangible than pathogen elimination, contributes significantly to overall emergency preparedness and resilience. Chemical purification, treating water with modern science. Chemical water purification represents one of humanity's most significant public health advancements, transforming how we protect ourselves from waterborne diseases in both everyday and emergency scenarios. This approach harnesses the power of specific chemical compounds to neutralize harmful microorganisms, rendering contaminated water safe for human consumption. For preppers and survival enthusiasts, chemical purification methods offer distinct advantages. They require minimal equipment, occupy negligible storage space, function without heat or electricity, and provide reliable protection against most biological contaminants. These qualities make chemical treatments indispensable components of comprehensive water security strategies, particularly when mobility and resource conservation become paramount concerns. The history of chemical water purification reveals humanity's evolving understanding of disease and public health. Ancient civilizations discovered that certain substances, wine, copper, and silver among them, seemed to preserve water quality, though they lacked scientific understanding of the mechanisms involved. Modern chemical purification emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as germ theory revolutionized medicine. The introduction of chlorination for municipal water supplies dramatically reduced typhoid and cholera outbreaks, saving countless lives. Today's portable chemical purification options build upon this legacy, offering individuals the ability to replicate industrial-scale water treatment processes using simple, accessible tools. Chlorine-based treatments stand as the most widely used chemical purification option, available in several forms for emergency preparedness. Household bleach, sodium hypochlorite, represents perhaps the most accessible option present in most homes and effective when properly diluted. The active chlorine in bleach attacks proteins in bacterial cell walls and viral structures, rendering these pathogens harmless. For emergency treatment, only regular unscented bleach containing 5 to 6% sodium hypochlorite should be used. Never bleach with added cleaners, scents, or color-safe formulations, as these contain additional chemicals potentially harmful when ingested. The proper dosage follows a simple formula: 2 drops of bleach per quart of clear water, or 4 drops per quart if the water appears cloudy or colored. After adding bleach, the water should be stirred thoroughly and allowed to stand for at least 30 minutes before consumption, providing sufficient contact time for disinfection. Chlorine dioxide tablets represent a more sophisticated chlorine-based option specifically designed for water purification. Products like potable aqua chlorine dioxide or micropore tablets deliver precisely measured doses of this powerful oxidizing agent, eliminating guesswork and improving reliability. Chlorine dioxide proves particularly valuable against Cryptosporidium, a chlorine-resistant parasite that causes severe gastrointestinal illness. These tablets typically require longer treatment times, often 4 hours, for complete effectiveness, but offer superior performance against a broader spectrum of contaminants compared to household bleach. Their long shelf life, typically 3 to 5 years when properly stored, makes them excellent additions to emergency kits and bug-out bags where they may remain unused for extended periods. Iodine-based purification offers another chemical approach with a long history in emergency water treatment. Available as tablets, crystals, or tinctures, iodine effectively neutralizes most harmful bacteria and viruses through similar oxidative mechanisms as chlorine. Potable aqua iodine tablets represent perhaps the most recognized form, having been standard issue in military kits for decades. The typical dosage involves 1 or 2 tablets per quart of water, with a recommended waiting period of 30 minutes before consumption. Iodine's distinctive advantage lies in its rapid action. Water becomes safe to drink in half the time required by many chlorine dioxide treatments. However, this speed comes with significant trade-offs, including a pronounced medicinal taste that many find unpleasant and potential health concerns with prolonged use. The limitations of iodine as a purification method warrant careful consideration. The characteristic taste represents more than a mere inconvenience. It can lead to treatment avoidance, particularly among children or those unaccustomed to emergency conditions. More importantly, iodine presents potential health risks for certain populations. Pregnant women, individuals with thyroid conditions, those with shellfish allergies, and people taking lithium-based medications should generally avoid iodine-treated water due to potential complications. These restrictions make iodine less suitable as a sole purification strategy for family emergency planning. Additionally, iodine demonstrates reduced effectiveness against cryptosporidium and giardia cysts compared to other methods requiring longer contact times or higher concentrations to achieve reliable protection. Neutralizing agents can address some of iodine's palatability concerns without compromising purification effectiveness. Products like Potable Aqua Plus contain vitamin C, ascorbic acid, tablets designed to be added after the iodine treatment period completes. These compounds convert remaining iodine to iodide, which lacks both the distinctive taste and the amber color of iodine-treated water. While this additional step adds complexity to the purification process, it significantly improves compliance in real-world emergency scenarios where resistance to unpalatable water can undermine otherwise sound purification protocols. Some commercial products now combine iodine and neutralizing agents in single packages specifically to address this challenge. Silver-based purification systems represent an emerging category of chemical treatment with unique properties. Colloidal silver and silver ion solutions exploit silver's oligodynamic effect, its ability to disrupt cellular processes in microorganisms even at extremely low concentrations. Products like Catadin MicroPure tablets utilize silver ions as either primary disinfectants or secondary agents to prevent recontamination after primary treatment. Silver's advantages include exceptionally long-lasting protection against bacterial regrowth, minimal taste impact, and safety for populations that cannot use iodine. However, silver-based systems typically require longer treatment times and may demonstrate reduced effectiveness against viruses compared to chlorine or iodine alternatives. Their premium price point also makes them less accessible for large-scale emergency preparation. Combined chemical approaches often provide the most comprehensive protection, particularly in high-risk scenarios. Some commercial products intentionally incorporate multiple chemical agents, typically chlorine dioxide with silver ions, to address different categories of contaminants while preventing recontamination. This redundancy proves especially valuable when water sources contain multiple contaminant types or when treatment conditions aren't ideal. Similarly, preppers often employ chemical purification as one component of multi-stage treatment protocols, perhaps using chemicals to disinfect water that has already undergone filtration to remove particulates and larger organisms. This layered approach maximizes protection while minimizing the limitations inherent to any single purification method. Storage considerations significantly impact the effectiveness of chemical purification supplies. Most chemical treatments gradually degrade over time, with effectiveness diminishing as they age. Iodine tablets typically remain viable for approximately 1 year after opening, while chlorine dioxide products often maintain potency for 3 to 5 years. When properly stored, environmental factors, particularly heat, moisture, and light exposure, accelerate degradation. Storing chemical purification supplies in cool, dry locations away from direct sunlight extends their useful life. Many preppers implement rotation systems, regularly replacing older purification supplies with fresh stock and using the older products during training exercises or camping trips before they lose effectiveness. The environmental impact of chemical water treatments deserves consideration, particularly in wilderness settings where treated water may re-enter natural ecosystems. Chlorine and iodine can be toxic to aquatic organisms at concentrations far lower than those used for purification. Responsible practice involves treating only the water needed for immediate consumption rather than purifying large volumes that might be discarded. When disposal becomes necessary, treated water should ideally be dispersed over soil rather than returned directly to water sources, allowing natural filtration and microbial action to neutralize remaining chemicals before they reach sensitive aquatic environments. This environmental mindfulness aligns with the broader ethic of responsible stewardship that characterizes thoughtful prepping and survival philosophy. Filtration systems, mechanical barriers against contaminants. Water filtration represents one of the most versatile and effective approaches to water purification, employing physical barriers to remove contaminants that chemical treatments or boiling might miss. Unlike methods that primarily target biological pathogens, filtration systems can address a broader spectrum of water quality issues, including sediment, particulates, chemical pollutants, and microorganisms. This comprehensive capability makes filtration an essential component of any serious water security strategy for preppers and survival enthusiasts. Understanding the various filtration options, from commercial products to improvised solutions, provides crucial flexibility when facing uncertain water conditions in emergency scenarios. The fundamental principle behind filtration is deceptively simple. Water passes through a material with pores small enough to trap contaminants, while allowing clean water to flow through. However, this simplicity belies the sophisticated engineering and material science that informs modern filtration technology. The effectiveness of any filter depends primarily on its pore size, measured in microns, 1/1,000,000th of a meter. This measurement determines which contaminants the filter can reliably remove. Most bacteria range from 0.2 to 10 microns in size, while viruses are significantly smaller at 0.00 to 0.1 microns. Protozoan cysts like Giardia and cryptosporidium typically measure 1 to 15 microns. Understanding these size relationships helps explain why certain filters excel against some contaminants while proving ineffective against others. Commercial portable water filters have revolutionized emergency preparedness and outdoor recreation by providing reliable purification capabilities in compact, user-friendly packages. These devices typically employ multiple filtration stages to address different contaminant categories. Mechanical filtration elements, often ceramic, fiberglass, or hollow fiber membranes, physically block particles and microorganisms larger than their pore size. Many incorporate activated carbon components that absorb chemicals, pesticides, and compounds affecting taste and odor. Premium models may include additional media specifically targeting heavy metals or other specialized contaminants. This layered approach provides comprehensive protection against a wide range of water quality threats. Pump-style filters represent perhaps the most versatile category of portable filtration systems. These devices require manual pumping to force water through the filter element, typically processing 1 to 2 liters per minute, depending on the model and water conditions. The Katadyn pocket filter exemplifies this category's premium tier, featuring a silver impregnated ceramic element with 0.2 micron filtration capability. This pore size effectively removes bacteria, protozoa, and particulates, while the silver inhibits bacterial growth within the filter itself. The design allows users to clean the ceramic element repeatedly in the field, extending its lifespan to approximately 50,000 liters, a remarkable capacity that justifies its premium price point. For serious preparedness planning, gravity-fed filtration systems offer an attractive alternative that eliminates the physical effort of pumping while potentially increasing processing volume. These systems typically consist of 2 reservoirs connected by a filter element, with gravity pulling water from the upper dirty container through the crowful filter into the lower clean container. Models like the Platypus Gravity Works and MSR Autoflow employ hollow fiber technology with 0.2 micron pore size, providing protection against bacteria and protozoa comparable to pump filters. Their hands-free operation proves particularly valuable when processing large water volumes for groups or families. Once set up, these systems can process several liters without further attention, freeing users to perform other essential tasks, a significant advantage in emergency scenarios where time and energy efficiency matter. Straw-style filters have gained tremendous popularity in recent years due to their extreme portability and simplicity. Products like the Life Straw and Sawyer Mini allow users to drink directly from water sources through a compact filter tube. These ultralight options typically employ hollow fiber technology with 0.1 to 0.2 micron filtration capability, effectively removing bacteria and protozoa. Their minimal weight and volume make them ideal components of personal emergency kits, vehicle preparedness supplies, and everyday carry systems. Many models can process thousands of liters before replacement becomes necessary, though they lack the field cleaning capabilities of ceramic filters. Their primary limitation lies in the inability to store filtered water for later use, though some manufacturers now offer adapters that allow these filters to function with standard water bottles or hydration bladders. Bottle-integrated filters combine water storage and purification in single, convenient units. These systems typically feature a filter element built into the cap or body of a water bottle, purifying water as the user drinks or squeezes the container. Products like the Grail GeoPress and Sawyer Squeeze represent different approaches to this concept, with varying filtration capabilities and processing methods. The convenience of these integrated systems makes them particularly valuable for everyday emergencies and situations requiring frequent movement. Their limited capacity, typically 0.5 to 1 liter, makes them less suitable for providing water to groups or for extended stationary scenarios. But their portability and simplicity ensure they remain popular components of comprehensive preparedness strategies. Countertop and gravity-fed household filters provide larger scale filtration capabilities for home emergency scenarios. Systems like the Berkey water filter have developed almost cult-like followings in preparedness communities due to their impressive performance without requiring electricity or plumbing. These larger units typically employ multiple filter elements working in parallel, significantly increasing processing capacity compared to portable options. Their substantial water storage capacity, ranging from 1.5 to 6 gallons depending on the model, provides practical water security during extended emergencies affecting municipal water supplies. While their size makes them impractical for evacuation scenarios, these systems offer unmatched convenience and capacity for shelter-in-place emergencies. The limitations of filtration technology warrant careful consideration when developing water security strategies. Most significantly, standard filtration systems cannot remove dissolved chemicals, salts, or viruses. Even premium microfilters with 0.1 micron pore size remain too coarse to reliably capture viruses, which typically measure 0.004 to 0.1 microns. This limitation becomes particularly relevant when water sources may contain sewage contamination or in regions with endemic waterborne viral diseases. Similarly, filtration alone cannot address dissolved contaminants like pesticides, industrial chemicals, or heavy metals without specialized media designed for those specific pollutants. Understanding these constraints helps preppers determine when filtration provides sufficient protection and when additional or alternative purification methods become necessary. Maintenance practices significantly impact filter performance and longevity. All filters eventually clog with trapped contaminants, requiring either cleaning or replacement to maintain functionality. Ceramic filters can be scrubbed in the field to remove accumulated surface debris, restoring flow rates without compromising filtration effectiveness. Hollow fiber filters typically require backflushing, reversing water flow through the filter to dislodge trapped particles. Activated carbon components cannot be cleaned and must be replaced according to manufacturer guidelines, typically after processing a specified water volume or time period. Proper maintenance not only extends filter lifespan, but ensures consistent purification performance when it matters most. Improvised filtration methods provide valuable options when commercial filters are unavailable or depleted. These approaches typically employ readily available materials arranged in layers to create a makeshift filter. A classic improvised design uses a container with small drainage holes, layered from bottom to top with cloth, activated charcoal from a campfire, not briquettes, fine sand, coarse sand, and gravel. Water poured through this arrangement undergoes progressively finer filtration as it descends through the layers. While significantly less effective than commercial options, particularly against microscopic threats, these improvised systems can dramatically improve water clarity and remove larger contaminants. They serve best as pre-treatment before boiling or chemical disinfection rather than as standalone purification methods. Recent innovations in filtration technology continue expanding the capabilities available to preppers and emergency responders. Graphene-based filters represent perhaps the most promising frontier, with laboratory demonstrations showing remarkable effectiveness against contaminants that challenge conventional filters. Some emerging products incorporate nanotechnology to create precisely engineered pore structures capable of capturing viruses while maintaining practical flow rates. Other innovations focus on addressing specific regional water challenges, such as filters incorporating specialized media to remove arsenic, fluoride, or radioactive particles. These advancing technologies gradually close the performance gaps in current filtration systems, though often at price points that limit widespread adoption in personal preparedness contexts. Distillation, purifying water through phase change. Water distillation stands as one of the most thorough purification methods available, capable of addressing contamination challenges that defeat other approaches. Unlike filtration or chemical treatments, which target specific contaminant categories, distillation fundamentally separates water from virtually all impurities through the process of phase change. By converting liquid water to vapor and then recondensing it, distillation leaves behind contaminants ranging from biological pathogens to heavy metals, chemicals, and even radioactive particles. This comprehensive purification capability makes distillation particularly valuable in scenarios involving severely compromised water sources or unknown contamination type situations where the margin for error shrinks to zero. The scientific principles underlying distillation are elegantly straightforward. When water reaches its boiling point of 212 F, 100 C, at sea level, it transforms from liquid to vapor. Most contaminants, having different boiling points, remain in the liquid phase, while pure water molecules rise as steam. This vapor, when directed to a cooler surface, condenses back into liquid water now separated from the original contaminants. The process exploits fundamental physical properties rather than chemical reactions or mechanical barriers, giving distillation unique advantages in certain emergency scenarios. Most notably, distillation can render seawater potable by removing salt, a capability beyond most other portable purification methods, and potentially life-saving in coastal emergency situations. Conventional distillation equipment ranges from sophisticated laboratory apparatus to simple home distillers designed for countertop use. Commercial water distillers typically consist of a heating chamber where contaminated water boils, a condensing coil or chamber where steam reverts to liquid, and a collection vessel for the purified water. These systems produce exceptionally pure water but require substantial electrical power, typically 500 to 500 watts, making them impractical during power outages unless connected to robust alternative energy systems. Their production rate also tends toward the modest side, with most home units generating only 1 to 5 gallons daily. Despite these limitations, electric distillers remain valuable components of comprehensive water security systems, particularly for addressing specific contamination concerns like heavy metals or dissolved solids that challenge other purification methods. For emergency preparedness, non-electric distillation methods hold particular significance. The most accessible approach involves repurposing common kitchen equipment to create a rudimentary still. A large pot with a domed lid placed on a heat source with the lid positioned upside down forms the basis of this system. Cold water placed in the inverted lid condenses steam rising from the boiling water below. A cup positioned under the lid's handle catches purified water as it drips from the lowest point. While inefficient compared to purpose-built equipment, this improvised arrangement requires only items found in most kitchens and can produce limited quantities of purified water using any available heat source gas stoves, campfires, or even candle clusters in extreme situations. More sophisticated emergency distillation becomes possible with minimal specialized equipment. A pressure canner modified with copper tubing creates a remarkably effective, still capable of processing substantial water volumes. This approach involves drilling a small hole in the canner's lid to accommodate copper tubing, which carries steam away from the canner to a separate cooling arrangement where condensation occurs. The cooling system might be as simple as running the tubing through a bucket of cold water, or as elaborate as a coiled tube surrounded by continuously circulating cold water. This design's advantage lies in its dual-purpose nature. The pressure canner retains its food preservation functionality while gaining emergency water purification capability through a minor reversible modification. Solar distillation offers perhaps the most sustainable approach for long-term emergency scenarios requiring no conventional fuel sources. The basic solar still consists of a shallow, water-filled basin with a clear cover positioned at an angle above it. Sunlight passes through the transparent cover, heating and evaporating water. This vapor condenses against the cooler interior surface of the cover, which is angled to direct condensed droplets to a collection trough. While conceptually simple, effective solar stills require careful design consideration. The transparent cover, typically glass or clear plastic, must create an airtight seal around the basin while maintaining the optimal angle for droplet collection. Dark colored basin materials improve heat absorption, while shallow water depth maximizes the surface area exposed to solar energy. Field expedient solar stills provide survival options when commercial equipment is unavailable. The pit-style solar still represents the most widely taught survival technique, requiring only a clear plastic sheet, a collection container, and basic digging tools. The process involves excavating a cone-shaped pit approximately 3 feet deep and 3 feet in diameter, placing a collection container at the bottom center and covering the pit with plastic sheeting sealed around the edges with soil or rocks. A small stone placed in the center of the plastic creates a depression directly above the collection container. Groundwater, moisture from the soil, and optional organic material placed in the pit produce vapor that condenses on the plastic's underside and drips into the container. While functional, these expedient stills produce minimal water, often less than a pint daily, making them last resort options rather than primary purification strategies. The limitations of distillation warrant careful consideration, despite its impressive purification capabilities. Most significantly, the process requires substantial energy input, approximately 1,200 watt-hours of electricity, to distill a single gallon of water using conventional equipment. This energy demand makes distillation impractical for large-scale emergency water production unless abundant fuel or alternative energy sources exist. The process also proceeds relatively slowly compared to filtration or chemical treatment, with most setups producing only gallons per day rather than gallons per hour. Additionally, distillation removes beneficial minerals along with contaminants, potentially leading to flat-tasting water that lacks trace elements beneficial to human health during extended use. Certain volatile contaminants present specific challenges for distillation systems. Substances with boiling points lower than or similar to water, including some pesticides, volatile organic compounds, and certain industrial chemicals may vaporize alongside water molecules and carry through to the condensed product. This limitation becomes particularly relevant in scenarios involving industrial contamination or chemical spills. Advanced distillation systems address this vulnerability through fractional distillation techniques or the addition of activated carbon post-filters to capture these volatile compounds. Emergency and improvised systems typically lack these refinements, making them potentially vulnerable to these specific contaminant categories. The taste of distilled water often proves problematic for individuals unaccustomed to it. The absence of dissolved minerals creates a distinctly flat flavor profile that many find unpalatable, particularly when transitioning directly from mineral-rich tap or well water. This taste issue can lead to reduced water consumption, a dangerous outcome during emergency situations when proper hydration remains critical. Simple remineralization through the addition of a small pinch of sea salt per gallon can significantly improve palatability without compromising purification benefits. Some emergency preparedness experts recommend storing mineral drops specifically for this purpose, allowing precise control over the mineral content of distilled water used for drinking. Storage considerations for distilled water differ somewhat from other purified water types. The absence of minerals and organic compounds eliminates many of the elements that typically support microbial growth, potentially extending storage life. However, this purity also makes distilled water highly reactive. It readily absorbs carbon dioxide from the air, forming carbonic acid and gradually lowering pH. Additionally, the absence of minerals means distilled water may leach compounds from improper storage containers more aggressively than mineral-containing water. For these reasons, distilled water should be stored in high-quality containers specifically rated for long-term water storage, ideally made from food-grade materials that resist leaching. Glass and certain BPA-free plastics, particularly HDPE, represent the safest options for extended storage of distilled water. Solar purification, harnessing the sun's power for clean water. Solar water purification harnesses the abundant energy of the sun to render contaminated water safe for consumption. This approach stands apart from other purification methods through its remarkable sustainability, requiring no fuel, chemicals, or specialized equipment that might be depleted or unavailable during prolonged emergencies. For preppers and survival enthusiasts, solar purification represents a valuable addition to their water security toolkit, offering reliable disinfection capabilities, even in scenarios where conventional resources have been exhausted. Understanding the science, techniques, and limitations of solar purification empowers individuals to implement these methods effectively when circumstances demand creative solutions to water contamination challenges. The scientific foundation of solar purification rests primarily on the germicidal effects of ultraviolet radiation. Sunlight contains UVA and UVB wavelengths capable of damaging the DNA and RNA of microorganisms, preventing them from reproducing and effectively neutralizing their threat to human health. This process, known as solar disinfection or SODIS, has been recognized by the World Health Organization as an effective water treatment method, particularly in developing regions where conventional purification resources remain scarce. The simplicity of this approach belies its effectiveness. Studies have demonstrated that proper solar exposure can reduce bacterial contamination by 99.9% or more, comparable to results achieved through more resource-intensive methods. The most accessible solar purification technique requires nothing more than clear plastic bottles and sufficient sunlight. The SODIS method involves filling PET, polyethylene terephthalate, bottles with water, ensuring they contain no more than 2 inches of headspace to minimize the oxygen available to microorganisms. These bottles are then placed horizontally on a reflective surface, often simple corrugated metal or aluminum foil, in direct sunlight for a minimum of 6 hours on sunny days or 2 consecutive days under cloudy conditions. The combination of UV radiation and heat gradually inactivates harmful pathogens. With temperatures above 122 F50C, accelerating the process through thermal disinfection effects that complement the UV damage. Water clarity significantly impacts solar purification effectiveness. Turbid or cloudy water blocks UV penetration, dramatically reducing disinfection efficiency. When dealing with visibly dirty water, preliminary filtration becomes essential. Even simple methods like straining water through clean cloth or allowing particulates to settle can substantially improve subsequent solar treatment results. The rule of thumb suggests that you should be able to read newspaper print through the filled bottle. If text appears illegible, the water requires clarification before solar treatment can proceed effectively. This limitation underscores the importance of understanding solar purification as one component of a multi-stage water treatment approach rather than a standalone solution for all contamination. Bottle selection and preparation play crucial roles in solar purification success. Only clear, colorless PET bottles should be used. Blue tinting or other colorations block essential UV wavelengths, while glass filters out much of the UVB radiation necessary for disinfection. Bottles should be relatively new and free from significant scratches or clouding that might impede light transmission. Before first use, bottles should be thoroughly washed with soap and water, then rinsed completely to remove any residual soap. Many practitioners recommend replacing bottles after approximately 6 months of regular use, as physical degradation from repeated sun exposure gradually reduces their transparency and effectiveness. Environmental conditions dramatically influence solar purification timelines. Direct sunlight on clear days provides optimal conditions, allowing complete disinfection within 6 to 8 hours. Partial cloud cover extends the required exposure time, while complete overcast may necessitate 48 hours or more to achieve comparable results. Geographical location and seasonal variations also impact effectiveness. Regions closer to the equator receive more intense UV radiation year-round, while temperate zones experience significant seasonal fluctuations in UV intensity. These variables necessitate a conservative approach to exposure times, with many experts recommending doubling the minimum suggested duration when any uncertainty exists about environmental conditions. Enhanced solar disinfection techniques can improve efficiency and effectiveness beyond the basic SOTUS method. Painting the lower half of treatment bottles black increases heat absorption without blocking UV penetration through the upper surface, accelerating the thermal component of disinfection. Similarly, placing bottles on corrugated metal or aluminum foil reflectors increases the total UV exposure by directing reflected light onto the bottles from below. Some practitioners construct simple solar boxes, essentially shallow, reflective containers with transparent covers that create greenhouse-like conditions around the bottles. raising water temperatures more rapidly than open-air exposure. These enhancements can reduce treatment times by 25 to 50% under ideal conditions. The limitations of solar purification warrant careful consideration despite its impressive sustainability advantages. Most significantly, this approach proves ineffective against chemical contaminants, heavy metals, and dissolved solids. Water containing pesticides, industrial pollutants, or toxic metals remains dangerous even after thorough solar treatment. Additionally, certain pathogens demonstrate greater resistance to UV radiation, with bacterial spores and protozoan cysts requiring extended exposure for reliable inactivation. Cryptosporidium, in particular, presents a challenge for solar disinfection, often surviving standard treatment durations. These limitations make solar purification most appropriate for water sources with primarily biological contamination rather than chemical pollution. Weather dependency represents perhaps the most significant practical limitation of solar purification. During extended periods of heavy cloud cover, rain, or in regions with limited sunlight during winter months, this method becomes unreliable or impractical. This vulnerability underscores the importance of maintaining alternative purification capabilities, chemical treatments, filtration systems, or boiling capacity to ensure water security regardless of environmental conditions. Many preppers incorporate solar purification into their strategies as a fuel-free, sustainable option while maintaining more weather-independent methods as primary or backup approaches. The shelf life advantage of solar purification deserves special attention in long-term emergency planning. Unlike chemical treatments that expire or filters that eventually clog, the basic components of solar purification, plastic bottles, and sunlight remain indefinitely available. PET bottles can be scavenged from discarded beverage containers long after commercial water treatment supplies have been exhausted. This perpetual renewability makes solar purification particularly valuable for truly extended emergency scenarios or in developing regions where supply chains for conventional purification products remain unreliable. The method's independence from commercial supply systems represents a significant resilience advantage in worst-case scenarios. Practical implementation of solar purification benefits from several field-tested refinements. Removing labels from bottles improves UV penetration, while filling bottles completely and then decanting a small amount before sealing creates slight vacuum pressure that prevents leakage during handling. Placing bottles horizontally rather than vertically maximizes the water surface exposed to UV radiation while reducing water depth. Many practitioners recommend shaking bottles vigorously for 20 seconds before sun exposure to increase dissolved oxygen levels, which enhances the photochemical reactions that damage pathogens. After treatment, water should be consumed directly from the treatment bottle rather than transferred to other containers, minimizing recontamination risks. The historical and global context of solar purification provides valuable perspective on its practical utility. This approach didn't emerge from modern survival literature, but rather from public health research seeking sustainable water treatment solutions for developing regions. Organizations including the Swiss Federal Institute for Environmental Science and Technology, EAWAG, have conducted extensive field studies demonstrating soda's effectiveness in reducing diarrheal disease incidence by 30 to 70% in communities adopting the practice. This real-world validation across diverse geographical and cultural contexts testifies to solar purification's practical value beyond theoretical laboratory results. The method's proven effectiveness in resource-constrained environments makes it particularly relevant for emergency scenarios where conventional infrastructure and supply chains have failed. Ultraviolet light treatment, modern technology for pathogen destruction. Ultraviolet light purification represents one of the most sophisticated yet accessible modern water treatment technologies available to preppers and survival enthusiasts. This approach harnesses specific wavelengths of ultraviolet light, primarily UVC radiation, between 200 to 280 nanometers to disrupt the DNA and RNA of microorganisms, preventing them from reproducing and effectively neutralizing their threat to human health. Unlike chemical treatments that add substances to water or filtration that physically removes contaminants, UV purification leaves no residual chemicals and requires no physical media replacement, offering a unique combination of effectiveness and convenience that makes it increasingly popular in emergency preparedness circles. The scientific mechanism behind UV purification is elegantly straightforward yet devastatingly effective against biological contaminants. When microorganisms are exposed to UVC radiation, the energy disrupts molecular bonds within their genetic material, creating thymine dimers, abnormal chemical bonds between adjacent thymine bases in DNA. These structural changes prevent the organism from replicating properly, rendering it incapable of causing infection, even if ingested. This process proves remarkably effective against a broad spectrum of pathogens, including bacteria, viruses, and protozoan cysts that might resist other treatment methods. Studies consistently demonstrate that proper UV exposure can achieve 99.99% reduction in most waterborne pathogens, providing protection comparable to more resource-intensive approaches. Portable UV purification devices have revolutionized emergency water treatment by packaging this technology in compact, user-friendly formats accessible to individual preppers. Products like the Steripin Ultra and Steripin Adventurer represent the most widely recognized options. Using battery-powered UV lamps designed for treating water in containers ranging from wide-mouth bottles to cooking pots. These handheld devices typically require 45 to 90 seconds to treat 1 liter of water with integrated timers ensuring adequate exposure. Their minimal weight, typically under 5 ounces, and compact dimensions make them ideal components of bug-out bags, vehicle emergency kits, and everyday carry systems where space and weight constraints prove significant considerations. The Steripin Sidewinder represents a particularly innovative approach to UV purification, designed specifically for emergency scenarios. Unlike battery-dependent models, this device incorporates a hand crank generator that powers the UV lamp through manual cranking. This design eliminates battery dependency, a significant vulnerability in prolonged emergencies, while maintaining the core benefits of UV purification technology. The user simply inserts the lamp into a water container, then cranks the handle for approximately 90 seconds per liter. This human-powered approach ensures purification capability remains available indefinitely, regardless of battery availability or charging infrastructure, making it especially valuable for long-term emergency planning. Water clarity represents the most significant factor influencing UV purification effectiveness. Turbid or cloudy water blocks UV penetration, potentially allowing pathogens to remain shielded from radiation that would otherwise neutralize them. Most manufacturers recommend treating only visibly clear water, with the general guideline that you should be able to read newspaper print through the filled container. When dealing with cloudy or discolored water, pre-filtration becomes essential. Even simple methods like cloth straining or allowing particulates to settle can dramatically improve subsequent UV treatment results. This limitation underscores the importance of understanding UV purification as one component of a multi-stage water treatment approach, rather than a standalone solution for all contamination scenarios. The limitations of UV purification warrant careful consideration despite its impressive effectiveness against biological contaminants. Most significantly, this approach does nothing to remove chemical pollutants, heavy metals, or particulates. Water containing pesticides, industrial chemicals, or toxic metals remains dangerous even after thorough UV treatment. Additionally, the process provides no residual protection. Water can be recontaminated immediately after treatment if exposed to new pathogens. These constraints make UV purification most appropriate for treating water from relatively clean sources with primarily biological contamination concerns, or as one component of a more comprehensive treatment protocol that addresses multiple contamination types. Battery dependency represents a significant practical limitation for most commercial UV purifiers. Standard battery-powered models typically provide 40 to 100 treatments per charge cycle, depending on the specific device and battery capacity. While rechargeable models offer sustainability advantages, they ultimately require access to electricity for recharging a resource that may be unavailable during extended grid-down scenarios. This vulnerability can be mitigated through solar charging capabilities, spare battery storage, or selecting hand-cranked models like the SteriPen Sidewinder that eliminate battery dependency entirely. Many preppers maintain chemical purification tablets as backup options specifically to address potential battery limitations of their primary UV purification systems. The fragility of UV purification technology compared to other methods warrants consideration in emergency planning. The glass tubes containing UV lamps can break under impact, while electronic components may fail when exposed to extreme conditions or electromagnetic pulses. This vulnerability contrasts sharply with the robustness of ceramic filters or the shelf stability of chemical treatments. Protective cases and careful handling mitigate these risks somewhat, but the inherent fragility remains an important consideration when evaluating UV purification for inclusion in emergency kits that might experience rough handling during evacuations or other high-stress scenarios. Proper technique significantly impacts UV purification effectiveness. The UV lamp must be fully submerged during operation to ensure proper light transmission through the water. Agitation during treatment, typically achieved by stirring with the device itself, ensures all water volumes receive adequate exposure. Treatment containers should be clear and colorless, as tinted materials may filter out essential UV wavelengths. Most manufacturers recommend treating relatively small volumes, typically 0.5 -1 liter at a time, rather than attempting to purify larger containers, as UV penetration diminishes with distance from the light source. Following these procedural guidelines maximizes the likelihood of achieving complete pathogen inactivation during treatment. The verification challenge represents a psychological aspect of UV purification worth considering. Unlike filtration, which often produces visibly clearer water, or chemical treatments, which impart detectable tastes or odors, UV purification provides no sensory feedback confirming its effectiveness. The water looks, smells, and tastes identical before and after treatment. This invisibility of the purification process requires users to trust the technology and their implementation of it without immediate evidence of success. For some individuals, this lack of verification creates psychological discomfort that may lead to treatment avoidance or unnecessary redundancy. Understanding this psychological dimension helps preppers determine whether UV purification aligns with their personal comfort level and risk tolerance. The environmental advantages of UV purification deserve recognition in comprehensive emergency planning. Unlike chemical treatments that may impact aquatic ecosystems when treated water re-enters the environment, UV purification introduces no chemical changes to the water itself. Similarly, it generates no waste products requiring disposal, unlike filter elements that eventually become saturated with contaminants. This environmental neutrality aligns with the broader ethic of responsible stewardship that characterizes thoughtful prepping and survival philosophy. For those concerned about minimizing their environmental footprint even during emergency scenarios, UV purification offers distinct advantages over approaches that introduce persistent chemicals or generate contaminated waste requiring special handling. Natural filtration, wilderness solutions for water purification. When it comes to water purification, natural filtration methods represent humanity's oldest approaches to rendering questionable water sources potable. Long before modern filters or chemical treatments existed, indigenous cultures worldwide developed sophisticated techniques for improving water quality using materials readily available in the natural environment. For the modern prepper or survival enthusiast, these ancient methods offer invaluable fallback options when commercial purification systems become unavailable or depleted. Understanding these natural approaches provides a layer of water security that transcends dependency on manufactured products, a self-reliance that aligns perfectly with the core philosophy of emergency preparedness. The fundamental principles behind natural filtration mirror those of commercial systems, though typically with less precision and efficiency. Natural materials arranged in layers create progressively finer filtration stages that trap contaminants while allowing cleaner water to pass through. Coarse materials like gravel remove larger debris, while finer substances like sand capture smaller particles. Certain natural materials even provide antimicrobial properties or adsorption capabilities that address biological and chemical contaminants. While rarely achieving the comprehensive purification of modern systems, these natural approaches can dramatically improve water quality, particularly when combined with secondary treatment methods like boiling. Charcoal filtration represents perhaps the most effective natural purification material available in wilderness settings. When properly prepared, charcoal from hardwood sources creates a highly porous filtration medium with remarkable adsorption capabilities. The microscopic structure of activated charcoal provides enormous surface area. A single gram can offer 501,500 square meters of surface area when properly activated. This structure allows charcoal to trap not only particulates but also absorb certain chemical contaminants and even some biological pathogens. The effectiveness increases dramatically when the charcoal is activated through exposure to high heat with limited oxygen, creating a more porous structure with enhanced adsorption properties. Creating functional charcoal for water filtration in field conditions requires specific techniques. The process begins with burning hardwood. Softwoods like pine contain resins that can contaminate water to create charcoal, not ash. The resulting charcoal should be broken into small pieces, approximately pea-sized, then activated by reheating in a covered container with small holes that limit oxygen exposure. This secondary heating opens the carbon structure to create the microscopic pores essential for effective filtration. While field-activated charcoal cannot match the performance of commercially activated carbon, it nonetheless provides significant purification capabilities, particularly for improving taste, odor, and removing certain chemical contaminants. Sand filtration has provided water purification for thousands of years, with evidence of sand filters dating back to ancient Egypt and India. The effectiveness of sand as a filtration medium stems from its physical structure and biological activity. As water passes through fine sand, physical straining removes particles larger than the spaces between sand grains. More importantly, a biologically active layer called the schmutzdeck, dirt cover, develops on the sand's surface after repeated use. This living layer of microorganisms consumes many harmful bacteria and breaks down organic contaminants, significantly enhancing purification beyond mere physical filtration. This biological action explains why established sand filters often perform better than newly constructed ones. The beneficial microorganism community requires time to develop. Constructing an effective sand filter in emergency situations follows principles similar to commercial slow sand filters, though at smaller scale. A container with drainage holes at the bottom forms the foundation, typically a bucket, barrel, or hollow log in field scenarios. The filtration layers from bottom to top typically include gravel for drainage, coarse sand, fine sand, and sometimes a top layer of cloth to capture larger debris. Water poured into the top percolates through these layers, emerging cleaner at the bottom. The flow rate must remain relatively slow, typically no faster than 0.5 -1 gallon per hour for a bucket-sized filter to allow sufficient contact time for both physical and biological occur. Faster flow rates significantly reduce effectiveness. Plant-based filtration offers surprising effectiveness in certain emergency scenarios. Research into indigenous water purification methods has identified several plant materials with natural, antimicrobial, and filtration properties. The seeds of the Moringa oleander tree, drumstick tree, contain natural coagulants that bind to contaminants, causing them to clump together and settle out of water. Studies have demonstrated that crushed moringa seeds can remove up to 99% of bacteria from contaminated water. Similarly, the prickly pear cactus, Opuntia ficus indica, contains mucilage that functions as a natural flocculant, clearing turbid water by causing suspended particles to aggregate and settle. These plant-based approaches prove particularly valuable in regions where these species grow naturally. The remarkable filtration capabilities of certain woods have gained scientific attention in recent years, validating traditional practices used for generations. Research at MIT demonstrated that a small piece of sapwood from pine trees can filter bacteria from water with effectiveness comparable to commercial filters. The xylem tissue in sapwood, the living vascular structure that carries sap up the tree, contains microscopic pores ranging from 5 to 200 microns that physically block bacteria while allowing water to pass through. A 1-inch diameter branch section can filter several liters daily, removing approximately 99.9% of E. coli bacteria. This natural technology requires only a fresh branch, some tubing, and a waterproof sealant to create a functional emergency filter. Soil-based filtration represents perhaps the most universally accessible natural purification method available virtually anywhere terrestrial plants grow. The principle mirrors nature's own water purification system as rainwater percolates through soil layers, physical, chemical, and biological processes remove contaminants before the water reaches underground aquifers. Recreating this process involves layering soil components in a container with drainage. Clay-rich soil proves particularly effective due to its fine particle size and natural adsorption properties. The most effective arrangement typically includes gravel at the bottom for drainage, followed by sand, then fine soil or clay at the top. As with other natural filters, slow flow rates maximize effectiveness by allowing sufficient contact time between water and filtration media. The limitations of natural filtration methods warrant careful acknowledgement despite their value in emergency scenarios. Most significantly, these approaches rarely provide complete purification on their own. While they may dramatically improve water clarity and remove many contaminants, they typically cannot guarantee elimination of all pathogens or chemical pollutants. For this reason, natural filtration methods serve best as pre-treatment steps before secondary purification through boiling, solar disinfection, or chemical treatment. This multi-barrier approach compensates for the limitations of any single method while conserving resources. Filtered water requires less fuel to boil and fewer chemicals to treat effectively. The improvised combination filter represents the most comprehensive natural approach, incorporating multiple filtration materials to address different contaminant categories. A typical arrangement in a container with drainage holes might include, from bottom to top, gravel, sand, crushed charcoal, fine sand, and cloth. Each layer targets specific contaminants. Gravel captures large debris. Sand removes smaller particles. Charcoal absorbs chemicals and some pathogens, while the top cloth layer prevents disturbance of the filter materials and captures larger particles. Water processed through this arrangement emerges significantly cleaner than the original source, though secondary treatment remains advisable for complete safety. The materials for this approach can be gathered from the natural environment in most locations, making it a universally accessible option when commercial purification methods are unavailable. Emergency water collection. Finding sources when the taps run dry. When disaster strikes and municipal water systems fail, the ability to locate alternative water sources becomes a critical survival skill. Water surrounds us in various forms and locations, yet many people facing emergency situations struggle to identify viable sources beyond the familiar flow of household taps. For the prepared individual, understanding how to locate, assess, and collect water from diverse sources provides essential flexibility during crises. This knowledge transforms potential dehydration emergencies into manageable challenges, offering peace of mind and practical solutions when conventional water infrastructure becomes unavailable. The urban environment contains numerous overlooked water sources that can sustain individuals and families during infrastructure disruptions. The household water heater represents perhaps the most accessible reservoir, typically containing 30 to 80 gallons of potable water. Accessing this supply requires simply turning off the incoming water supply and power source to prevent damage once emptied, then opening the drain valve at the tank's bottom. This water generally requires minimal treatment, if any, having already passed through municipal filtration systems before entering the home. Similarly, toilet tanks, not bowls, contain several gallons of clean water in homes where non-toxic bowl cleaners are used. The pipes of a home's plumbing system also contain several gallons that can be drained by opening the lowest faucet in the house after shutting off the main water supply. Rainwater collection provides a renewable water source during extended emergencies, requiring only minimal equipment to implement effectively. The simplest approach involves placing clean containers directly in rainfall, though this method collects relatively small volumes. More efficient systems utilize existing structures, particularly roofs and gutters, to channel rainfall into larger collection containers. A typical residential roof can collect approximately 0.6 gallons per square foot of roof area during an inch of rainfall, translating to hundreds of gallons during even moderate precipitation events. Temporary collection systems can be created using tarps or plastic sheeting arranged to funnel water into containers. Regardless of collection method, rainwater typically requires treatment before consumption due to potential contamination from collection surfaces, though it generally contains fewer contaminants than surface water sources. Natural water bodies, lakes, rivers, streams, and ponds provide abundant water in many regions, though they carry significant contamination risks. Moving water generally contains fewer contaminants than stagnant sources, making flowing streams and rivers preferable to still ponds when options exist. When collecting from natural water bodies, selecting the clearest water available reduces the burden on subsequent purification methods. Collecting from the surface center of flowing water rather than near banks or the bottom where sediment concentrates typically yields cleaner initial samples. These sources invariably require thorough purification before consumption, as they may contain biological pathogens, agricultural runoff, industrial pollutants, and natural contaminants that pose serious health risks. Groundwater accessed through springs and wells typically offers superior quality compared to surface water, having undergone natural filtration through soil and rock layers. Existing wells can provide water even during power outages through manual pumping methods. Many modern wells can be temporarily fitted with hand pumps when electric pumps become inoperable. Natural springs, where groundwater emerges naturally at the surface, often provide excellent water quality, though they should not be assumed safe without testing or treatment. When collecting from springs, gathering water as close to the emergence point as possible reduces contamination risks. Both wells and springs generally require less intensive purification than surface water, though treatment remains advisable during emergency situations when water quality cannot be verified. Snow and ice provide readily accessible water sources in winter conditions, though they require energy input for melting. Fresh, clean snow yields approximately 1 gallon of water per 10 to 12 gallons of snow, depending on density. When collecting snow for melting, selecting clean, fresh accumulations away from roads and other contamination sources maximizes quality. Yellow or discolored snow should always be avoided due to potential contamination. The melting process should occur gradually to to conserve fuel, adding small amounts of snow to an existing water reservoir proves more efficient than attempting to melt large volumes from a frozen state. While freshly fallen snow in pristine areas may be relatively clean, treatment remains advisable before consumption, particularly in regions where industrial air pollution may contaminate precipitation. Plant sources can provide emergency water when other options are unavailable, though they typically yield limited quantities. Many plants concentrate clean water in their structures, vines, roots, and certain tree species can be tapped or processed to extract moisture. The water content of green bamboo stems, for instance, can be accessed by bending and tying the stalk to create pressure that forces water to one end when cut. Similarly, some desert cacti store significant moisture that can be extracted by crushing the pulp. Certain trees, particularly birch and maple, can be tapped using techniques similar to syrup collection, yielding drinkable sap during appropriate seasons. These plant-based sources generally provide relatively clean water, requiring minimal treatment, though the labor-intensive collection process typically limits volume. Morning dew collection represents a survival technique that can provide small but critical water quantities in certain environments. This approach involves dragging absorbent cloth, cotton, wool, or specialized collection cloths across dew-covered vegetation during early morning hours, then wringing the accumulated moisture into collection containers. While labor-intensive and yielding modest volumes, typically less than a liter per hour under ideal conditions, this method requires no equipment beyond basic textiles and containers. The technique proves most effective in regions with high humidity and significant temperature drops overnight, which maximize dew formation. Water collected through this method generally requires treatment before consumption, as the collection process may introduce contaminants from vegetation surfaces. The psychological aspects of emergency water collection warrant consideration alongside technical methods. Water scarcity induces profound anxiety that can impair decision-making precisely when clear thinking becomes most crucial. Understanding available collection options before emergencies occur provides not just practical knowledge, but psychological resilience, the confidence that water remains accessible even when conventional systems fail. This mental preparation proves as important as physical supplies in many emergency scenarios, preventing panic-driven decisions that might lead to consumption of unsafe water sources or dangerous conservation attempts that result in dehydration. Ethical considerations inevitably arise during emergency water collection, particularly when accessing sources on private property or shared natural resources. While immediate survival needs may justify accessing water from any available source during life-threatening emergencies, responsible preppers consider the broader implications of their collection methods. Whenever possible, water should be collected in ways that minimize environmental impact and respect others' property rights. Taking only what is needed, avoiding contamination of sources, and considering downstream users all reflect the ethical responsibility that accompanies emergency resource utilization. These considerations align with the broader prepper ethos of community resilience rather than purely individualistic survival. Transportation and storage logistics present significant challenges when collecting water from sources distant from usage locations. Water's substantial weight, approximately 8.3 pounds per gallon, makes manual transport physically demanding and potentially impractical for larger volumes. Collapsible containers specifically designed for water transport offer advantages over rigid containers, allowing efficient storage when empty while providing substantial capacity when needed. Wheeled transport options, from purpose-built water carts to improvised solutions using wagons or carts, can dramatically increase practical collection volumes. Many experienced preppers maintain multiple container sizes to match various collection scenarios, from small bottles for individual carry to larger reservoirs for household storage. Water storage strategies. Preserving your most precious resource. Water storage forms a critical component of comprehensive emergency preparedness, providing a buffer against supply disruptions that might otherwise quickly escalate into life-threatening situations. While purification methods enable the treatment of questionable water sources, proper storage ensures clean water remains immediately accessible regardless of external conditions. For the serious prepper, water storage isn't merely about accumulating containers. It encompasses a sophisticated approach to quantity calculation, container selection, rotation protocols, and contamination prevention. Mastering these elements transforms water from a vulnerability into a cornerstone of emergency resilience. The fundamental question of storage quantity requires thoughtful consideration based on both universal guidelines and individual circumstances. The widely accepted baseline suggests 1 gallon per person per day for drinking, food preparation, and minimal hygiene. However, this represents an absolute minimum rather than an optimal target. More realistic planning accounts for increased needs during extreme weather conditions, physical exertion, medical situations, and hygiene requirements beyond the bare minimum. Many experienced preppers aim for 2 to 3 gallons per person daily, with additional allowances for pets, livestock, or garden irrigation, if applicable. Duration planning varies widely based on risk assessment, while FEMA recommends a minimum 3-day supply. Serious preparedness typically starts at 2 weeks and extends to months or even years for those concerned about long-term grid-down scenarios. Container selection significantly impacts both water quality preservation and practical storage logistics. Food-grade plastic containers represent the most accessible and versatile option for most preppers, with high-density polyethylene HDPE recycle code number 2, offering an optimal balance of durability, weight, and chemical stability. These containers, available in sizes ranging from 1-gallon jugs to 275-gallon IBC totes, resist cracking, limit light penetration, and minimize chemical leaching into stored water. Glass containers provide excellent chemical stability and indefinite lifespan, but introduce practical challenges due to weight and breakage risks. Metal containers, particularly stainless steel, offer exceptional durability, but typically come with higher cost and potential corrosion concerns with certain water types. The ideal approach for many involves a diversified container strategy, smaller, portable containers for evacuation scenarios, complemented by larger stationary reservoirs for shelter-in-place emergencies. Water treatment for long-term storage requires specific approaches to prevent microbial growth during extended storage periods. Municipal tap water typically contains residual chlorine that provides short-term protection, but this dissipates within days to weeks, leaving water vulnerable to bacterial contamination. For storage exceeding 6 months, additional treatment becomes necessary. The most accessible approach involves adding regular, unscented household bleach, 5 to 6% sodium hypochlorite at a ratio of 8 drops, approximately 1/8 teaspoon per gallon of water. This creates a chlorine concentration sufficient to prevent microbial growth without rendering the water unpalatable. Commercial water preserver products offer a more precisely formulated alternative, typically providing protection for 2 to 5 years, depending on the specific product and storage conditions. These products generally contain stabilized forms of chlorine that maintain effectiveness longer than regular bleach. Storage location considerations dramatically impact both water quality, preservation, and practical accessibility during emergencies. The ideal storage environment maintains consistent, cool temperatures between 50 to 70 F, 10 to 21 C, while avoiding freezing minimizes light exposure and provides protection from potential contaminants. Basements typically offer optimal conditions in most homes, combining cooler temperatures with protection from light and freezing. When basement storage isn't available, interior closets or underbed spaces provide reasonable alternatives. Though temperature fluctuations may reduce optimal storage duration, garage storage, while convenient, often exposes water to extreme temperature variations that accelerate both chemical leaching from containers and chlorine degradation. These suboptimal conditions don't necessarily preclude garage storage, but may necessitate more frequent rotation and inspection protocols. Rotation protocols ensure water quality remains high while minimizing waste. Unlike many food items with clearly defined expiration dates, properly stored water doesn't expire in the conventional sense, though storage conditions and container types significantly impact optimal rotation intervals. Water stored in factory-sealed, commercially bottled containers typically remains viable for 1 to 2 years under ideal conditions. Water personally packaged in food-grade containers with appropriate treatment generally warrants rotation every 6 to 12 m-ounce, with more frequent rotation for suboptimal storage conditions. Rather than discarding rotated water, efficient systems incorporate this resource into regular household use. Irrigation, cleaning, or drinking after verification of quality. This practical approach maintains emergency supplies in optimal condition while eliminating unnecessary waste. Contamination prevention requires attention to several critical factors beyond initial treatment. Container preparation plays a crucial role. New containers should be thoroughly washed with soap and water, then sanitized with a mild bleach solution. 1 teaspoon bleach per quart of water and completely rinsed before filling. Previously used containers demand even more rigorous preparation to eliminate residual substances that might contaminate water or support microbial growth. Filling techniques also impact contamination risk. Containers should be filled completely to eliminate airspace that might support bacterial growth, and sealed immediately after filling to prevent airborne contamination. The container exterior should be wiped clean and dry before storage to prevent potential contaminant transfer from the outside surface to the water when opened during emergencies. Specialized storage products offer advantages for those willing to invest in purpose-designed solutions. Water bricks, stackable, rectangular containers typically holding 3.5 gallons optimize storage space efficiency while maintaining portability, allowing compact storage of substantial water volumes that remain manageable for transport if evacuation becomes necessary. Water bob and similar bathtub bladder systems provide rapid emergency capacity, allowing users to store up to 100 gallons in a standard bathtub when advance warning of water service disruption exists. These food-grade plastic bladders prevent contamination from the tub surface while providing a sealed environment that maintains water quality for weeks. Underground cisterns represent the high end of residential water storage, offering capacities ranging from hundreds to thousands of gallons while minimizing space utilization and maintaining optimal temperature conditions. Rainwater harvesting systems provide a renewable water source that complements conventional storage strategies. These systems typically collect rainfall from roof surfaces, channeling it through gutters and downspouts into dedicated storage containers, ranging from simple rain barrels to sophisticated underground cisterns. While requiring more significant infrastructure than basic container storage, these systems offer the substantial advantage of renewable supply rather than finite storage. The legal status of rainwater harvesting varies significantly by jurisdiction. Some regions actively encourage the practice through incentive programs, while others impose restrictions or permit requirements. Water collected through these systems generally requires treatment before consumption due to potential contamination from collection surfaces. Though it typically contains fewer contaminants than surface water sources, the financial aspects of water storage warrant consideration within broader emergency preparedness budgeting. Container costs vary dramatically based on type, size, and quality, from under $1 per gallon capacity for basic plastic containers to $3 -5 per gallon for premium options with specialized features. Treatment products add minimal cost, typically pennies per gallon for basic chlorine treatment, or slightly more for commercial water preservers. The most significant hidden cost often involves space utilization. Waters face substantial weight, approximately 8.3 pounds per gallon, requires sturdy shelving or floor storage, potentially displacing other items or activities. Balancing these costs against the critical nature of water security helps preppers allocate resources appropriately within their overall preparedness strategy. Recognizing water as perhaps the most essential yet cost-effective category of emergency supplies, the psychological security provided by adequate water storage transcends practical considerations, offering peace of mind that proves invaluable during actual emergencies. The knowledge that your household's most fundamental physiological need remains satisfied regardless of external conditions creates a foundation of confidence that supports clearer thinking and better decision-making during crises. This psychological benefit extends beyond emergency scenarios into everyday life. Many preppers report that establishing robust water storage reduces background anxiety about potential disruptions, allowing greater mental focus on other aspects of life. This intersection of practical preparation and psychological resilience represents one of the most significant yet often overlooked benefits of comprehensive water storage strategies. Water quality testing, ensuring your water is safe to drink in emergency situations. The ability to verify water safety can mean the difference between hydration and illness. Water quality testing represents a critical yet often overlooked component of comprehensive water security. While purification methods provide essential treatment capabilities, testing offers the means to verify their effectiveness and make informed decisions about necessary treatment intensity, F, or the serious prepper. Water testing tools and knowledge provide crucial feedback that prevents both unnecessary treatment of already safe water and insufficient treatment contaminated sources. The invisible nature of many water contaminants creates a fundamental challenge in emergency scenarios. Dangerous pathogens, chemicals, and heavy metals often leave no visible traces or obvious sensory indicators. Clear, pleasant tasting water may harbor deadly bacteria, while slightly discolored but otherwise safe water might be rejected based on appearance alone. This disconnect between sensory perception and actual safety creates a dangerous information gap that testing helps bridge. While sensory evaluation provides valuable initial assessment, rejecting water with obvious contamination indicators like unusual colors, odors, or floating debris, it cannot replace objective testing for invisible threats that pose serious health risks. Bacterial contamination represents perhaps the most immediate water safety concern in emergency situations, causing illnesses that can rapidly incapacitate individuals when medical assistance remains unavailable. Coliform bacteria testing provides a practical approach to identifying this threat category. These bacteria, while not necessarily harmful themselves, indicate potential fecal contamination and the likely presence of dangerous pathogens. Commercial test kits using methods like presence, absence, P, attesting with color-changing media offer relatively simple field implementation. Typically, a water sample mixes with testing medium in a sterile container, then incubates for 24 to 48 H-hours at room temperature. Color changes indicate bacterial presence, signaling the need for treatment before consumption. While these tests cannot identify specific pathogens, they effectively flag water requiring purification. Chemical contamination presents distinct challenges compared to biological threats, potentially causing both acute and chronic health effects depending on specific contaminants and concentrations. Testing for chemical contaminants typically requires more specialized equipment than bacterial testing, though simplified field options exist for certain common chemicals. Test strips provide the most accessible approach for many chemical parameters, offering rapid results for contaminants like nitrates, nitrites, chlorine, lead, pesticides, and pH levels. These paper strips, impregnated with reagents that change color in response to specific chemicals, provide approximate concentration ranges when compared against reference charts. While lacking the precision of laboratory analysis, they offer sufficient information for basic safety assessment in emergency scenarios. Heavy metals contamination warrants particular concern due to both acute toxicity at high concentrations and cumulative health impacts from chronic exposure. Lead, arsenic, mercury, and cadmium represent particularly dangerous contaminants that may enter water supplies through industrial pollution, mining activities, or leaching from pipes and fixtures during infrastructure damage. Field testing options for heavy metals have improved significantly in recent years, with specialized test kits now available for preppers and homesteaders. These typically employ colorimetric reactions where reagents change color in proportion to metal concentration. Digital meters offering greater precision have also become more affordable and portable, though they require battery power and calibration to maintain accuracy, considerations that may limit their practicality in extended emergencies. Radiological contamination, while less common than other threat categories, presents unique concerns following certain disaster scenarios, particularly nuclear incidents or damage to facilities utilizing radioactive materials. Testing for radiological contamination typically requires specialized equipment beyond what most individuals maintain, though basic radiation detection devices like Geiger counters can provide general indication of contamination if available. For most preppers, radiological water safety relies more on information gathering than direct testing, understanding which water sources might be affected based on incident, location, and type, then applying appropriate treatment methods or avoiding compromised sources entirely. When radiological contamination is suspected but cannot be confirmed through testing, multiple treatment methods in combination offer the best protection. Turbidity water cloudiness caused by suspended particles provides an important visual indicator that influences both aesthetic acceptability and treatment requirements. While not directly harmful, high turbidity can interfere with disinfection effectiveness by shielding pathogens from treatment agents and indicating possible contamination. Simple turbidity testing involves filling a clear container with water and assessing clarity against printed text or objects. More precise measurement uses turbidity tubes, clear cylinders with black and white patterns at the bottom that disappear from view at specific turbidity levels. Alternatively, electronic turbidity meters provide digital readings for those requiring greater precision. High turbidity generally indicates the need for filtration before other treatment methods to remove particles that might interfere with disinfection. Effectiveness. Field testing kits designed specifically for emergency scenarios offer comprehensive testing capabilities in portable packages. These kits typically combine multiple testing methods bacterial culturing materials, chemical test strips, and sometimes digital meters for parameters like total dissolved solids, TDS. Quality varies significantly between products, with professional grade kits used by humanitarian organizations offering greater reliability than budget consumer options. The most practical kits balance comprehensiveness with simplicity, focusing on critical parameters that inform treatment decisions rather than exhaustive analysis. For most preppers, kits that test for bacterial contamination, basic chemical parameters, pH, nitrates, nitrites, and heavy metals like lead provide sufficient information for field safety. Assessment. Digital water quality meters have become increasingly accessible to non-professionals, offering rapid results for certain parameters without chemical reagents or incubation periods. TDS meters, which measure electrical conductivity as a proxy for dissolved solids concentration, provide immediate feedback on mineral content and potential contamination. While unable to identify specific contaminants, these devices offer valuable trending information. Sudden increases in TDS readings from previously stable sources warrant investigation and potentially increased treatment. Similarly, pH meters provide immediate acidity, alkalinity readings that help identify chemical contamination and determine appropriate treatment approaches. The primary limitations of these devices involve battery dependence and calibration requirements, which may become problematic during extended emergencies. Interpretation of test results requires understanding both the significance of various parameters and their interactions. Bacterial testing generally provides straightforward binary outcomes. Presence indicates necessary treatment, while absence suggests microbiological safety. Chemical parameters require more nuanced interpretation based on concentration thresholds. For instance, nitrate levels below 10 parts per million ppm generally indicate safety for healthy adults, but may pose risks to infants or pregnant women at lower concentrations. pH values provide context for other parameters, very high or low readings suggest chemical contamination, while moderate deviations primarily affect taste rather than safety. The most effective interpretation approaches these parameters holistically rather than in isolation, recognizing that multiple moderate abnormalities often indicate more significant concerns than a single parameter slightly outside ideal ranges. The practical implementation of water testing in emergency scenarios requires balancing thoroughness against resource constraints. Testing every water source for every possible contaminant quickly becomes impractical, necessitating strategic approaches that maximize information while conserving limited testing supplies. Prioritization typically focuses on testing unknown sources before use, regularly monitoring known sources for changes, and verifying treatment effectiveness for high-risk sources. Testing frequency increases when environmental conditions change: heavy rainfall, nearby industrial accidents, or infrastructure damage all warrant additional vigilance. This strategic approach ensures critical information availability when needed most, while preserving testing capabilities for extended emergencies. The psychological dimension of water testing warrants consideration alongside technical aspects. Uncertainty about water safety creates significant anxiety during emergencies, potentially leading to either excessive caution that limits water utilization or dangerous complacency that risks consumption of unsafe sources. Testing provides objective data that counters both extremes, allowing confidence in safe sources while confirming the need for treatment when contamination exists. This psychological reassurance proves particularly valuable during extended emergencies when decision fatigue and stress may otherwise impair judgment regarding water safety. The peace of mind that comes from verified water quality represents an often overlooked benefit of testing capabilities that extends beyond purely physical health considerations. Water represents our most fundamental survival need, superseding even food in immediate importance. Throughout this guide, we've explored the multifaceted approaches to ensuring water security during emergencies, from purification methods to collection strategies, storage techniques, and quality verification. This comprehensive knowledge transforms water from a potential vulnerability into a cornerstone of preparedness, providing both physical security and psychological reassurance during challenging circumstances. The diverse purification methods examined boiling, chemical treatment, filtration, distillation, solar disinfection, and ultraviolet treatment. Each offer distinct advantages and limitations. Understanding these nuances allows informed selection of appropriate techniques based on specific scenarios, available resources, and contamination types. The most resilient approach involves familiarity with multiple methods, creating redundancy that ensures water security regardless of which resources remain accessible during emergencies. Natural filtration approaches provide valuable fallback options when commercial products become unavailable, connecting modern preparedness with ancient wisdom that sustained humanity for millennia before industrial water treatment. These techniques, utilizing charcoal, sand, plant materials, and soil, demonstrate nature's remarkable purification capabilities while offering universally accessible solutions regardless of location or resources. While rarely matching the efficiency of modern systems, these approaches can dramatically improve water quality, particularly when combined with secondary treatment methods. Water collection strategies address the critical question of source identification when conventional supplies fail, from household reservoirs like water heaters to environmental sources, including rainfall, surface water, groundwater, and even plant moisture. Viable water exists in numerous forms across virtually all environments. The ability to recognize and access these diverse sources provides essential flexibility during emergencies, transforming potential dehydration crises into manageable challenges with multiple solution pathways. Storage considerations extend water security beyond immediate collection, and purification capabilities, creating time buffers against supply disruptions. The systematic approach to storage, encompassing quantity calculations, container selection, treatment protocols, location optimization, and rotation schedules, transforms water from a daily concern during emergencies into a stable resource, supporting broader response capabilities. This security provides both physical hydration and psychological reassurance that enhances decision-making during stressful situations. Water quality testing completes the preparedness cycle by verifying the effectiveness of collection, storage, and purification efforts. The ability to detect invisible threats from bacteria to chemicals and heavy metals prevents both unnecessary treatment of already safe water and insufficient treatment of contaminated sources. This objective verification replaces uncertainty with confidence, allowing informed decisions based on actual conditions rather than assumptions or fears. The interconnected nature of these water security elements highlights the importance of systematic rather than piecemeal preparedness. Collection capabilities prove worthless without purification knowledge. Purification methods require appropriate storage to preserve treated water, and testing provides the feedback mechanism that verifies the effectiveness of the entire system. This holistic approach transforms isolated techniques into a comprehensive water security strategy capable of addressing diverse emergency scenarios. Beyond technical knowledge, psychological resilience represents perhaps the most valuable outcome of water preparedness. The confidence that comes from knowing your household's most fundamental physiological need remains secured regardless of external conditions creates a foundation for clearer thinking and better decision-making during crises. This psychological benefit extends into everyday life, reducing background anxiety about potential disruptions and allowing greater mental focus on other aspects of both preparedness and normal activities. The community dimension of water security warrants consideration alongside individual household preparedness. Knowledge sharing about local water sources, collaborative equipment, investment, and mutual assistance during emergencies all enhance collective resilience beyond what individuals can achieve in isolation. The most effective preparedness approaches balance self-reliance with community interconnection, recognizing that widespread emergencies ultimately require cooperative responses that leverage diverse skills and resources across multiple households. Water security ultimately transcends mere survival, enabling dignity and health maintenance during circumstances that might otherwise reduce existence to its most primitive state. The ability to maintain hydration, hygiene, and food preparation during extended emergencies preserves not just physical health, but human dignity and psychological well-being.